In the year 1726, Catherine Hayes stood chained to a wooden stake at Tyburn, the roar of the London crowd a deafening wave of condemnation. They hadn't just come to see her die, they had come to watch her burn. This was the horrific price for petty treason, a fate reserved for women who murdered their husbands. And in the heart of the city, justice had become the most brutal form of public entertainment imaginable. This was Tyburn, a name that for centuries was whispered with a shudder of fear. First appearing in records in 1196, this patch of land at what is now Marble Arch became the final, terrifying stage for tens of thousands of souls. By the 16th century, its notoriety was cemented by the construction of the infamous Tyburn Tree. This was no natural growth, but a monstrous triangular gallows engineered to hang up to 24 people at once. It was an architecture of fear, a constant looming symbol of the crown's absolute power. On execution days, the city convulsed with a grim festival. A procession snaked its way from Newgate Prison, the condemned rattling in an open cart. The air, thick with the smell of gin, sweat, and roasting nuts from street vendors, would be pierced by the jeers of thousands. This was the hanging fair, a place where you could buy a meat pie, have your pocket picked, and watch a man's neck snap, all before lunch. It was here that the state didn't just punish crime, it performed it, turning human suffering into a chilling lesson for all to see. At the center of this theater of death stood the executioner. He was a pariah, shunned by society and barred from honest work, yet on hanging day he was a grim celebrity. As he ascended the gallows, a hush would fall over the boisterous crowd, every eye fixed on the man who held the power of a quick death or slow, strangling agony. This power was a commodity. It was an open secret that a tip, a few coins pressed into the executioner's hand by the condemned or their family, could buy a small mercy, a stronger push, a carefully placed knot, a quicker drop. He would take the money with practiced indifference, his hands calloused from the rope and the axe, the final arbiters of a grim transaction. He was the embodiment of a paradox, a social outcast who, for a few terrifying moments, wielded more power than anyone in the roaring crowd below. The history of Tyburn is written in blood, but some executions were so ghastly they became immortalized in London's folklore. In 1661, the gallows were used not on the living, but on the dead. In an act of pure monarchical vengeance, the corpse of Oliver Cromwell, the man who had signed the king's death warrant, was exhumed from its resting place. The decaying body was dragged through the streets and hanged in chains for all to see, a grotesque carnival show of power. Afterwards, his head was severed and mounted on a spike above Westminster Hall, a silent, rotting warning that not even the grave could protect a traitor from the crown's wrath. But political vengeance was just one act in Tyburn's repertoire. The gallows also reflected the brutal biases of the era, especially towards women. In 1767, London was gripped by the case of Elizabeth Brownrigg, a midwife convicted of torturing and murdering her young servant, Mary Clifford. The details of the abuse, which involved relentless starvation and beatings, had so horrified the public that the usual carnival atmosphere was replaced by a cold, righteous fury. As Brownrigg was carted to the gallows, the crowd didn't just jeer, they seethed, their roars demanding a justice as brutal as her crimes. Her execution became a moment of social reckoning, casting a harsh light on the vulnerability of domestic servants in Georgian England. Then there were the punishments that seemed torn from a medieval nightmare, like that of Catherine Hayes in 1726. For women, killing a husband was considered an act of treason against the domestic order. The punishment wasn't the rope, it was the fire.
As the kindling piled around her was lit, the crackle of burning wood gave way to a far more sickening smell. The immense heat pushed back the closest spectators, their faces illuminated by the flames that were consuming a human being. Her reported screams, cut short as the executioner, in a supposed act of mercy, strangled her amidst the smoke, became a chilling cautionary tale. For those convicted of high treason, particularly after the Jacobite rebellions, an even more dreadful fate awaited: to be hanged, drawn, and quartered. This wasn't merely an execution, it was a systematic demolition of a human being, a visceral spectacle designed to obliterate any trace of rebellion and terrorize anyone who witnessed it. After more than 600 years of blood-soaked spectacle, the end finally came. On the 3rd of November, 1783, a highwayman named John Austin became the last person to be executed at Tyburn. His death marked the closing of a dark chapter. The reasons for the closure were practical as much as moral. The hanging fairs had become ungovernable, descending into drunken riots and chaos that undermined the solemnity the state intended. Reformers argued that the brutal spectacles were hardening the public to violence rather than deterring it. Executions were moved behind the cold stone walls of Newgate Prison, hidden from the public gaze. But the change was slow. Though the Tyburn Tree was gone, public hangings in England would continue for another 85 years, until 1868. Tyburn was dismantled, but its shadow lingered. It remains a haunting monument to an age when justice was performance, fear was policy, and the line between a roaring crowd and a baying mob was as thin as a hangman's rope.